Hey everyone, welcome to our first Google Hangout. I'm pretty excited about doing this, and we're going to be talking about stopping violence in the workplace. And in particular, today we're going to talk about schools. So let's get started with that. This is being brought to you by Piece of Work and ePanic Button. All right, let's talk about where we're going with this, and we could move on. All right. So one thing I wanted to point out for you folks is to please consider joining Google Hangouts, and then you could also join one of the circles that I have, workplace violence cases, where I update. Let's go look at it. We update all of the incidents as they come out, and we have other great contributors as well. One thing that I do is I update it with recent and emerging incidents. So as soon as I hear about a case, I upload it onto this page, and then you could be tracking these to find out about incidents and find out what's going on in the world of workplace violence. The one area that I wanted to address, the one thing that I thought we could focus in on, of course, today was school violence, as it gets so much attention. And one place where we can start is certainly the Chronicle of Higher Education. Broadly, when we talk about school violence, we could talk about K through 12. Also, another idea is higher education with campuses, colleges, community colleges, and universities. Those of you who are familiar with campus security may be aware of the Clery Act, which came around in 1990, and in this case, it's a requirement, it's a federal requirement for higher education institutions to provide reports on their crime data. And I've done a few assessments with colleges, and it's interesting, looking at these crime reports. One thing is there's a requirement to disclose crimes in annual security reports, and how the report, what's considered a report and how that's reported, I find some discrepancy sometimes, and that's why it's maybe not really portraying the real threat that occurs on campuses. Well, this organization called VTV, Family Outreach Foundation, which is made up of survivors and victims of the tragedy in Virginia Tech in 2007. They got together as a grassroots organization, working with other experts recently at a conference, and they are planning to develop a new gauge, a new method to determine risk. And one thing I found that certainly was interesting is they're not just looking at the public safety records, but broadly looking at the emergency management protocols, how they share information. Imagine the more amorphous sort of cultural, environmental issues, and then I'm glad to see that they also address sexual violence as well. If I may, I'll switch over to a quick personal view. I just want to say that while certainly there's a lot of concern regarding workplace school violence with shootings and rampage shootings, those are very horrible, but very, very rare. Sexual violence on campuses is much, much more common, and I don't feel it's getting the same attention that these programs, these other types of prevention programs get. So hopefully we're going to see this organization address those concerns as well. And it's also an issue where it's not a gizmo or a gadget or an something that's going to help prevent it, but it comes down to really a cultural shift. And just along those lines, maybe we'll do another hangout about sexual violence, but the bystander approach is a really valid prevention method where we're seeing people standing up and speaking up to prevent violence. But let's get back to some of the things we're trying to cover here. All right. I like how that zooms in like that. That's pretty neat. The other point that I want to put out there is they're going to be they're planning to pilot this program with a small group of colleges this year, and so we'll sort of see how that goes out. By the way, in terms of the need to develop a new tool, just to point out is that the Chronicle also wrote a pretty biting article back in 2009 looking at the Clery Act, saying that the reports are, this is pretty heavy, neither reliable or comparable, and that the students and families seem to ignore them. And well, I don't think I want to comment now on the Clery Act, but there's certainly maybe a need for another measurement tool. Moving right along, I want to discuss another point. Where was it? Nope, not one. This one. All right. This is hopping down the ladder to K through 12, and we're finding the concerns about school shootings and violence in our schools where they develop zero tolerance policies. That term zero tolerance often also comes from workplace violence prevention, and in particular from litigations regarding workplace violence. And the idea is that any sort of infraction just met quickly and swiftly with a appropriate boundary setting and a response. So what we're seeing is situations like a little girl with a Hello Kitty toy that shoots bubbles, or a 5-year-old pointing his finger at it, or making a gun out of Legos, or another kid pointing his finger as if it's a gun. If I may retell one story about a high school student that I knew, who I didn't know personally. I heard about this case, that he was helping a neighbor or a relative move, and he had a pickup truck, and out of the kitchen boxes, a kitchen knife fell out, and it was in the bed of his truck. And a school official was going through the parking lot, sees the knife in the back of his truck. He gets reported, gets suspended, and it's that sort of draconian measures which, while you could say you can look at sort of the Ed Koch response to violence and crime in New York City about just slam down, zero tolerance, just nip everything in the bud. And there was some effectiveness to that, but the real question is, is the solution worse than the problem? One thing I'll say, if it works, people can argue that it's worth it. Let me switch back to making my point to you here. One thing that I'll say is that these programs, these zero tolerance policies, sometimes reduce reporting because people are concerned that some people may get in trouble or be overblown, or they don't want to cause any more problems. So these workplace violence, school violence, zero tolerance policies actually reduce reporting, which is exactly what you don't want to have. So that's just one concern that I'd like to put out there, and I welcome your comments. If you're joining us, you can speak now, or you could put some comments in the video section below. All right, let's get back to what we were discussing here. The other points that I wanted to mention is just some recent cases. Well, let me discuss one other issue regarding school violence. I had a colleague who inquired recently about metal detectors in schools, and there's a whole argument regarding putting armed guards in schools. And then I fortunately had the honor of meeting the president of the National School Resource Officers Program, and whether it's appropriate to have armed people or not, there's a question about defining the term appropriate. However, there's other people, the other agenda is saying, maybe metal detectors might be the answer. Just personally, my response is that metal detectors certainly may be appropriate in high crime areas where we have schools, and high gang or high drug activity areas where we see that youth violence with guns is a very, very serious issue. And that, again, is the main issue. It's the rampage shootings. These mass shootings are extremely rare and unlikely. So whether we put them all across in small schools and some place that has low crime activity, whether that's really the best use of dollars is a good question. The second point I'd like to make is that during rampage shootings, that these in no ways would be any sort of prevention, that maybe the alarm would go off when the individual goes through the door, but they immediately could start shooting, causing deaths. In no ways does it stop the shooting. All it does is it notifies you that somebody has a firearm. And in the vast majority of these incidents, these rampage incidents, school or workplace, most of them, now a good size of them commit suicide anyway. So again, by no means is this any sort of prevention or stopping or obstacle. Just regarding this whole point, we could certainly talk about an incident in Atlanta where we have a middle school, and we have a young man who shot another young man, getting a wound in the back of his neck. It's unknown if what the issues, or at least to me, I'm not aware of what the motivation was. However, the main issue is that apparently this school did indeed have metal detectors, but it's not clear if the student ever went through those metal detectors because the incident occurred outside the building. So again, in no means did this sort of prevent the issue. What did happen is, even though while the young man shot one individual. An armed, and I think this is an important point, an armed officer apprehended the suspect and stopped this within minutes. And this is maybe the argument that I'm going to mess up his last name, Kennedy, who's the president of the National School Resource Officers Association, he was making, is having appropriately trained people who are good at this, knowing how to prevent this. I think the real beauty of this is that an armed officer did not shoot the young man, the young perpetrator, but he somehow was able to apprehend and disarm the individual without using lethal force. And, you know, I wasn't there. I'm not sure what happened, but we could say, thank goodness, nothing happened. Moving on to another incident, this one I felt it's sort of odd. Again, the gentleman, Mo Kaneda, who heads off the association, and I both live in the Birmingham area. And for those of you who may not be familiar, Chelsea is right here in the middle of our neighborhood. And we have an incident where a young man who was a previous student and a part-time employee of the school comes in and holds 5 young women, young girls hostage. I got to say, you know, when I first heard about this, you get sort of a sinking feeling in your gut. Many hostage situations that happen in schools with girls in particular usually end up in sexual assault or rape. And I'm thinking of the Amish, Pennsylvania school shooting or school incident, and then during that same time frame, I think that was fall of 2008, in Colorado, a man went in and took a number of girls hostage and sexually assaulted them. I don't know what the motive was with this person. However, the real point, again, getting back to the issue, is that a deputy and the principal were able to talk to the person into releasing and surrendering himself. So again, when we have security, appropriately trained, well-chosen security, it's not that they've got, you know, the guns and the body armor to deal with the assault, but they have the personal skills, the de-escalation skills to defuse things and handle this hostage negotiation situation. So again, we've got another positive thing coming out of having the right people there at the right time. The last thing that I want to say, though, if I could, regarding prevention of school violence or workplace violence or these rampage shootings, it's not necessarily armed guards or resources. That is maybe possibly a part of it, but one of the main factors we can look at is the idea of, again, bystanders, about people coming forward. And this recent incident that happened, I guess it was last week, we have a young man, 2 young men who swore an oath to, you know, they collaborated, I guess we can use the term conspiracy, to commit violence at their school, very, very similar to the Columbine situation. According to this report, is this AP who did this? Well, it's by the Orlando Sentinel. You know, they had cutting behavior, played violent video games, and I don't think that that's an issue. I personally do not believe that video games are the source of these issues. But we do have a unique case where 2 people are plotting together, but the reason it stopped because one of the boys told another. One broke the vow of silence and warned a classmate. That classmate, it's not detailed how, but he told appropriate authorities so that there was an intervention possible. The third classmate told their parents, told co-workers, told somebody. And what we saw is that this tragedy was averted. One note I just want to put about this is along with Columbine and with the other ones, and in this case, it's really interesting with this whole concept of 2 people coming together to plot something. We might see this more in schools. This is an excellent film. I just encourage you all to see it. I guess we could maybe use that term. Well, it's fiction. It's definitely a fictional story, but it's done really well in terms of outlining what the personalities and the issues and a lot of the concepts around these horrific events. The only incident I can possibly think of otherwise with adults would be the DC sniper case shooting. And then again, that was very different with a very controlling older man who really just manipulated a young person to be an accomplice in that crime. Well, guys, folks, I just want to say that's just sort of some brief thoughts that I had about school violence, and I just wanted to encourage you to keep joining this program. Please, if you're watching this afterwards, please consider getting a Google account. Join me at Johnny Lee 27. You can find that on Google. I'll show that in just a little bit. And the best prevention really is about developing healthy and respectful workplaces where people care about each other and come forward and they trust their organization when they do a report. Finally, if anything I can do for you with PC work, let me know. And we do have a really cool program called the ePanic button that works well for that. But again, I want to go back to please join me. Where is it? It's Johnny Lee 27. There we go. And hopefully you can join us for the next time. All right. Thank you so much. You all have a great day and stay safe out there.